Hi, in this lesson of geometry, we are going to be talking about how to graph and write linear equations. And the focus on the first part is going to be on graphing. Now, the first thing we need to understand is what the slope is. The slope, and the letter that we use for slope is m. And that is a ratio of the vertical change, your rise, so that's your up-down change, to the horizontal change, which we call the run. So that's your left-to-right change. So this is really important that you have this on your notes. Slope, like I said, we refer to it as m. It is the rise, which is your up-down change, over your run, which is your left-y change. Now look at this over here. If you have this point, we'll call it point x1, y1, okay? So you go over x1. So when you're graphing a point, you move the ladder over and then climb up, all right? And then the next point is at x2, so we'd go over x2 and up y2, okay? So that's where this one's located. So the slope is the rise. So to go from this point to this one, you would have to go up this many units, all right? So you would, to find out, like you could count here, but if this was like a huge number, you would subtract y2 and then say y2 minus y1, and that would give you this distance. So that's your up-down change, and then you would move over to the right or to the left, in this case to the right, over this many units. So in this case, you would subtract x2 minus x1 to get that. So that would be your run. So that is your slope. So let's talk about finding the slopes of lines. What is the slope of the following line? So we'll start with line B, which is the red line here. I'm going to write down two of the points on here. We have a -1, 2, and 4, -2. So those are 2 points that are on that line. So the first point, we'll call those values x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. So the slope formula says that we first, the change in the y's, that's the rise. So we're going to subtract the y's. So -2 minus 2, and then we subtract the x's. 4 minus a -1. So you would have -4 over 5. So that slope is a -4/5. Now sure enough, if we just count, which on a graph like this you can, you would have to go down 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to the next point. So that is your slope. And another thing I want to point out there is that the slope is a negative. Notice that. And when you look at a line that has a negative slope, if you look from left to right, it is falling. So always remember that, like when you're graphing, if your slope is negative, your line should be falling if you graph it correctly. Now let's look at line A, and I'll write in blue. And 2 points on line A would be 2, 3, and 5, 7. Again, this is the first point, so we'll call those values x1 and y1. This is the second point, so we'll call those values x2 and y2. So to find the slope, first, we look at the change in the y's. Okay, that's the rise. So you subtract those. 7 minus 3, y2 minus y1. And then in the denominator, you subtract the x's. 5 minus 2. So notice in the numerator, if you start with the 7, then when in the denominator, you're going to start with the 5. So that would give us 7 minus 3 is 4. 5 minus 2 is 3. So that slope is 4/3, which is a positive number, which means that will be going uphill, and it does. So if you look here to go from this point up to this point, you would have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, 2, 3. Yep, 4/3. All right, let's look at line D. So line D is right here, and that is a vertical line. All right, and let's think about what the slope would be. Now, it looks like they're only giving me 1 point. So I'm just going to pick any other point. We'll use this one. So this would be over 4 up 2. So we'll use that point. So let's just use the slope formula to find the slope. So to find the slope, we subtract the y's, 0 minus 2, and then we subtract the x's, 4 minus 4. That gives us negative 2 over 0. Now, if you remember, we can never divide by 0. Okay, if I have a group of 5 students and I want to divide you into groups of 0, it's just not possible. So that is called undefined. So the slope of a vertical line is undefined. Okay, so that's something you need to remember. If you were going to try doing rise over run, you'd say, okay, I go up 2 and over 0. Up 2 over 0, again, it's undefined. All right, lastly, line C, and that is this horizontal line. Now on that one, they give us 2 points, 1, 7, and 5, 7. So if you use the slope formula, subtract the y's, you'd have 7 minus 7, subtract the x's, 5 minus 1. That gives you 0 over 4, which is 0. So your slope is 0 of a horizontal line. So if you're at this point, you're going up 0 over 4. Or up 0 over 1, whatever, you're going to end up with a slope of 0. When you have a horizontal line, you are not going up, you are not going down, you're just staying at the same level. So let's review. If you have a positive slope, your slope value will be greater than 0, okay? And your line is increasing. So if you are like looking at a book, like you would read from left to right, your line is going uphill. If you have a negative slope, your slope is less than 0. And if you were reading from left to right, looking at this picture, you would be going downhill. If the slope is equal to 0, it is a horizontal line. And by the way that you would write the equation of this, like let's say, I'm just making up a point here. Let's say that this is at 3 here. Horizontal lines have the equation y equals, and it's whatever the number it goes through. So for every value of x, the y is always a 3. Okay, so for every value of x, the y is always a 3. One way that I remember that is I think, okay, a y is like an upside down h. So that's just the little trick I use in my mind to remember the equations of horizontal lines. Okay, an undefined slope, so m is undefined. The slope is undefined. That is a vertical line. Vertical, I forgot to see there, vertical line. All right, and these, let's just put some numbers in here. So let's say this is 2. These are x equals. So like in this case, if this went through 2 on the x-axis, it would be x equals 2. And these, again, I kind of can confuse these for a long time because like an x equals line is the opposite direction of the x-axis. Okay, they're like perpendicular. So I would always get those confused. But then I thought, okay, this is like a V and a V stuck together. So vertical lines are x equals. So that's just the trick that helps my brain remember that because I'm very visual. Alrighty, so let's talk about the way equations are written. The slope-intercept form of a line is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, b is the y-intercept. In other words, it's where the line intersects the y-axis. So it's called the y-intercept. And this is the form that I prefer with graphing. I like to always, or when I'm writing equations, I like to solve for y so that you have y equals and it's in this form, because then I can just really visualize where's the y-intercept. And then if it's a higher number, I know it's going to be a steep slope. The other way is called the point slope form. Now, that is when you're given a point, x1, y1. So you put it in here. All right, now there's a negative in the formula, so even if x and y are positive, well, if they are, it's going to look like they're negative in the formula. So you always take the opposite sign, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. And then you also have the slope in. Now, I always use this as a formula to write an equation. So I take a point and the slope and put it in the point-slope formula, which, by the way, is derived from the slope formula. That's where it comes from. And then I solve it for y to get the equation. So we'll talk about that more later. The other form you might see an equation in is called standard form, and that's where the x and the y are on the same side. And your coefficients can never be fractions or decimals. So like if you had a fraction, you would multiply everything by 2 to get rid of the fraction. So you'll talk more about that next year in Algebra 2. All right, let's do some graphing. So in the first one, it says y equals 2/3 x plus 1. So this is in slope-intercept form. You're given the slope and the y-intercept. So first of all, you graph the y-intercept. So on the y-axis, we go to 1, plot a point. That's where it's going to cross the y-axis. This is the slope, which is either up 2 over 3, because it's rise, which is your up-down, over run, which is your left-right. So up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3. Or it has to be 2/3. So you could also think of it this way, because 2 negatives makes a positive. So you could go down 2, back 3, down 2, back 3. 1, 2, 3. It's hard to count on with this light here. And then just connect to your points. And there's that line. Let's do one more. So here, the y-intercept is -4. So we go there, put a point. The slope is a -3, so it's -3 over 1, or it's a +3 and back 1. Both of those have one negative. So if we use the first one, we would go down 3 over 1. And I need to move that up slightly. Down 3 over 1. Or you could go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then back 1. Up 1, 2, 3, back 1. And there's this line. Okay? Oh, only you want to hit the points. All right, one more. These are in the point slope form. So what you want to do here is figure out what the point is that you're going to plot. So your x1, now that shows a +4, but the formula has a negative. So what it must be is x minus a -4. So your x1 is a -4. So even though it says +4, you write -4. And then this would be y minus y1. So y1 is a +3. So that is the point. Okay, so -4, +3. Your slope is this number right here. So first, plot the point. So back 4, up 3. And then the slope is -2 over 1. So then go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. So it looks like this. Okay, there's that line. I'm going to do something real quick like here, just because I want to show you. Like if you took this equation and if you solved it for y, so I would have to distribute here, you'd have -2x minus 8. And if I get y by itself, I would have y equals -2x minus 5. Okay, so then you could graph it using the y-intercept. And where is that at? -5, right here. And what's the slope? Down 2 over 1 or up 2 back. Okay, so it would be the same thing. All right, let's do one more here. So your point, your x1 would be a +4, your y1 would be a +2, and your slope is -1/3. So that means either down 1 to the right 3 or up 1 to the left 3. So we go over 4 up to 2, 4, 2, and then down 1 over 3 or up 1 back 3. Okay, and then that line would look like that. All right, so that's it for the first part of this lesson. Come on back another time and you can watch how we will write equations of lines. Thanks for watching.